Welcome back to the channel. This will be the first free hit team video in over a year, with the first blank Gameweek of the season fast approaching. After extensive UCL fantasy coverage over the weekend, the full focus now shifts back towards FPL, and if you want to see a wildcard squad, then leave your thoughts down in the comment section below, like this video, get it to over 200 likes, and subscribe to the channel. We are getting ever closer towards 33,000 subscribers, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single upload or live stream for both FPL and UCL fantasy. My team selection will also be published in the coming days, and on Saturday there'll be another deadline stream where I answer hundreds of your questions, and the plan is to do a reaction stream this weekend as well. And check out all the links in the description below for my X, Instagram and Blue Sky, the Discord server, FPL League and Spotify. All of that can be found. The same goes for my Patreon, which is patreon.com/DylanRCM. On YouTube, you can click the join button and become a member that way to gain early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. When building your free hit squad, team value can be very important. Mine is roughly 104.8 million overall, which is fairly decent, but I'm sure a lot of you watching will have even more money to spend. And in terms of a lot of value tied up in certain players, using the free hit can be perfect in order to keep these options in the long term, like Alexander Isak and Mohamed Salah, and you can have them back for Gameweek 30. So unlike the wildcard, which enforces permanent changes, you can make unlimited moves on the free hit, but it only lasts for one game week. So once you go into Gameweek 30, your team will be exactly how it was in Gameweek 28, and you can't make a transfer, play the free hit, and have those carry through to Gameweek 30. That's not the way it works. That's been covered across all my FPL videos this season, and something similar also applies in UCL Fantasy with the Limitless chip. But let's start off with the two goalkeepers. There's going to be a very solid squad across all positions, but there are even more options to consider, and let's not forget the likes of Cole Palmer are still great choices, and they're not going to suddenly forget how to play football overnight. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been very consistent in saying that Sells is the best goalkeeper in Fantasy Premier League. Not so long ago, there were some doubts about him when Nottingham Forest conceded 4 goals to Newcastle, and Sells wasn't looking that great in that particular moment, but then he had clean sheets in back-to-back games against Man City and Arsenal, and now he has pretty much cemented himself as the best goalkeeper in Fantasy Premier League with 11 more points than second place Jordan Pickford. Another option to consider, both for blank Gameweek 29 and the long term, is David Raya. Those three are my favourite goalkeepers in the game, but I think Sells has the best fixture in blank Gameweek 29, and only a week or two ago, these teams actually met in the FA Cup, and Sells made a crucial penalty save to send Nottingham Forest through to the FA Cup quarter-final. So I think Sells is a great option here. It's not going to be the most easiest of games, you could say, because it's away from home, and Ipswich Town can score from time to time, but I just think in any given game, you can't really back against Nottingham Forest keeping a clean sheet. They did it at Anfield earlier this season. They've done it against some of the best teams in the country, and I just think Sells is a great all-round choice. He went up in price fairly recently to 5.1 million, but that shouldn't be an issue with a cheap backup as your goalkeeper, and that's going to be Areola on your bench. That's going to be very simple. I would definitely not recommend having Pickford and Sells, not just for the long term until Gameweek 38, because you'll have some bench points from time to time, but also in blank Gameweek 29 on the free hit. You could even go for a even cheaper goalkeeper at 3.9 million or 4 million who doesn't even play, because Matt Sells will be between the sticks for Nottingham Forest, and he's got 12 clean sheets for the season. Could he make it 13 in blank Gameweek 29? I think he's got a great chance of doing so. Milos Kerkez produced a stunning assist against Tottenham Hotspur in that 2-2 draw, and he's been adding more creativity and open play threat to his game this season with multiple assists throughout the campaign, and he's been one of the best left-backs in the Premier League. There's no doubt about it. He's going to be linked to many clubs in the summer, but whilst he's here at Bournemouth, I think you've got to enjoy him as a very cheap asset, and he offers great value even at his current price, and he does face Brentford at home in blank Gameweek 29, so he's not a nailed-on starter for this blank Gameweek 29 team, as I'll show you towards the end of this video, but he's someone worth considering, and if you end up not going for Kerkez or you don't want to start him, you can go even cheaper and go for a 4 million defender, just like I talked about with Areola as your backup goalkeeper. But next up is going to be Diogo Dalot, another one who isn't guaranteed to start in this free hit team, but it's essentially playing the fixture. Leicester City have been struggling to score goals all season, but especially under Ruud van Nistelrooy, they have failed to score in pretty much every single game, it seems. They beat Tottenham Hotspur at their own stadium, and they also won their first game under Van Nistelrooy against West Ham, but other than that, they've failed to score on so many occasions. They sometimes lack that chance creation, and they are toothless in front of goal at times. So even Man United, as poor as they've been all season, they can go to Leicester Stadium and keep a clean sheet. I think it's possible, and Dalot has the most bonus points potential of any of their defenders. You've also got Onana in goal and the likes of De Ligt, who offers more set piece threat, but in terms of bonus points and assists, I think Dalot is even better. And we haven't seen in action too much this season because Man United have been terrible and have failed to keep clean sheets. But if they are able to do it against Leicester City, I think Dalot could get 7-8 points quite comfortably. Next up is Gabriel, who faces Chelsea at home. Not an easy opponent, of course, and that could be tightly contested. I know the last time they played each other at the Emirates, it was a 5-0 win for Arsenal, but I don't think the Gunners are anywhere near those levels this season, especially from an attacking perspective, but the chance creation is certainly lacking, and defensively they have been vulnerable at times. They were fairly fortunate in the end to come away with a point against a struggling Man United side, and Gabriel was one of the only decent performers in that game for the Gunners, and he's arguably been their best player all season, and I think he deserves a lot better. But in terms of set pieces, Arsenal have really struggled to score from those scenarios in quite some time. I think the last occasion they did so was against Tottenham, and that forced an own goal. But in terms of directly scoring from a corner kick, it has been several months, I think since December actually. So we'll see if they can get back to those levels in terms of set piece play, because from open play, they are really struggling to create chances at times, especially against low to mid blocks. Chelsea don't really play that sort of way, so that could favour Arsenal a little bit, but either way, both teams have been struggling. Chelsea since December, and Arsenal have really faltered ever since January with a shambolic transfer window to cap things off for the Gunners. I'm also going to go for Aït-Nouri, and that's because of that Southampton away fixture. I don't trust Wolves at all, but Aït-Nouri does have a bit of attacking potential. He can score and assist quite regularly for a left-back, and he also thrives in that left wing-back position, so to speak. And you've got other options in that Wolves defence. Jose Sarr in goal. You might want to go for one of their 4 million defenders, but I think Aït-Nouri is worth the extra millions for blank Gameweek 29, and they're top of the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating, until Gameweek 34. But with a free hit, that's not too relevant. That's something more to discuss in the best wildcard squad. With the free hit, you're just concerned about this week only, and Aït-Nouri is still up there amongst defenders. But the final option here is going to be Milenkovic, forming part of a defensive double-up for Nottingham Forest. You might disagree with this, and maybe you want to go for Gvardiol for the attacking threat against Brighton. That's another option that maybe narrowly misses out on this list, but I don't trust Man City defensively, and I think Brighton have been in great form, and in the case of Nottingham Forest, they churn out clean sheets for fun, and even away from home against Ipswich Town, I think they're probably top of the clean sheet odds for blank Gameweek 29. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Would you double up on Nottingham Forest defensively this week, or perhaps even in the long term, and which of these 5 defenders would you start? Justin Kluivert has been one of the revelations of this Premier League season, a bit like Bournemouth in general, and they've boasted so many great options in each position. The only downside to this pick is that he's fairly template now, but I think that hat-trick against Newcastle, all of the goals from open play, that cemented himself as one of the best assets in Fantasy Premier League. It wasn't like his hat-trick against Wolves earlier this season, which were all from penalties, which of course goes to show how appealing penalty takers can be in Fantasy Premier League, but that's very rare to get 2 penalties in a game, let alone 3. But he has done it from open play now on a regular basis, and I think he's worth the extra millions, and even though he's more of a template pick, he's better than Semenyo and all the other Bournemouth assets, especially in the midfield. I do like Evanilson though, so if you want to go for a Bournemouth offensive double-up, I would recommend Kluivert and Evanilson at the same time, and it's worth mentioning that the Dutchman has only blanked twice since Gameweek 21. Next up is Bruno Fernandes, who's returned in 3 consecutive games, and not just that, he's got bonus points in every single one of them, back-to-back double-digit hauls, and a 9-pointer against Arsenal with obviously a very intelligent free kick to open the scoring, and once he stepped up, I knew he was going to score. He's got that ability from those scenarios, and despite how poor Man United have been, Fernandes has still sometimes popped up with some important goals and assists and gotten some decent FPL returns. He's by far the best United asset across all positions, and if I had to start one of them in blank Gameweek 29, it undoubtedly would be Bruno Fernandes. I would also go for Jarrod Bowen, despite the blank against Newcastle. I was actually not that bullish on him for Gameweek 28, but I'm more keen for blank Gameweek 29, and I think long term he is still a decent choice. And for double Gameweek 33, for example, I think there will be a push towards Jarrod Bowen by that stage for sure, and he might become a template pick. But for now, he has relatively low ownership, and he's also a bit like Bruno Fernandes, a talismanic figure, the only difference being that he's not on penalties, but he's by far the best West Ham asset and I don't think there's any debate about that, even over Areola, who is obviously decent for that price as a backup goalkeeper. And with their defenders, I've never been keen on Wan-Bissaka. Creswell is okay for the price, and Kudus has been very inconsistent this season. But someone who has shown consistency is Brian Mbeumo, but in recent weeks he has faltered, I have to say that, and he has been slightly underwhelming. He's a very template pick, but you never back against him in a given game. Both home and away he can deliver, but I think Brentford have shown across the entire season that they are slightly stronger at home, and Mbeumo is also a player that thrives at the GTEC Community Stadium. So maybe away from home he hasn't been as great, but he's still produced some massive returns on the travels, and he is the best Brentford asset alongside Visser up front. But to complete this midfield, I'm going for a different sort of option here in Phil Foden, who has 8 goals and 1 assist against Brighton, his upcoming opponent. I think Foden is a great choice here, who's going massively under the radar, with most people going for Erling Haaland, which is understandable given Cole Palmer's lack of form, and a lot of people are trying to change their team structure, shifting money away from the midfield and into the forward line, and Omar Marmoush has been very popular, but he has blanked in 5 out of 6 games for Man City so far. Just the one match where he scored a hat-trick against Newcastle and caught everyone's attention. His ownership is still around 10%, as covered in my Transfers podcast, but I think Foden might be the best Man City asset for the next couple of game weeks in terms of value, and he could rival Erling Haaland for the captaincy, not just in blank Gameweek 29 against Brighton at home, but also against Leicester in Gameweek 30. A differential forward I've been recommending recently is Ivanosen. Ever since his return from injury, he scored against Wolves in the FA Cup as the Cherries won on penalties, and he scored against Tottenham Hotspur in that thoroughly entertaining 2-2 draw, and I think he's the best way of complementing Justin Kluivert and doubling up on that Cherries attack. I definitely prefer him over Semenyo, Danga Ouattara, who got benched against Tottenham to accommodate Ivanosen, and that's something I highlighted in my recent deadline stream, so I'd certainly go for the Brazilian as a nice punt, and I don't think Brentford at home is a bad fixture for attackers. If anything, I think it's a fairly good one, especially when they're playing at home, because Brentford have been fairly inconsistent on their travels. So if you want a low-owned striker, Ivanosen is the way to go. You might also consider Strand Larsen, simply because he's playing Southampton away. Beto is still decent, but in the last couple of matches, he has missed multiple big chances and been very frustrating. Omar Marmoush is another one that I've been talking about, but I'm going to go for the template Chris Wood, who is a very solid pick, maybe a no-brainer you could say, but his ownership is there for a reason. It's a shame he's not the differential he once was when I first owned him, but the bonus points he gets is ridiculous. He has blanked in the last 2 games, but over the course of the season, his consistency has been unrivaled in that forward position. He is still top of the forward rankings. His underlying stats might not be the best, but he still churns out those goals, and most of the big chances fall to Chris Wood in that Nottingham Forest team. You can also consider Gibbs-White, Elanga and Hudson-Odoi in the midfield and double up on Forest offensively, but in this team I've gone for Sells, Milenkovic and Chris Wood. Feel free to tweak a few things here and there, and that includes a differential Nottingham Forest midfielder in your ranks. But the final player is Erling Haaland. We have the budget to go to him. It doesn't say that on screen, but that's for someone who is starting FPL now. I've got the value built in my team to actually afford this squad, as you'll see using the website fpl.team when we visualize the starting 11 for blank Gameweek 29. But I would argue Haaland is right up there as one of the best captaincy options for this game week. The other standouts include Justin Kluivert. I think Phil Foden is a massive differential. Bruno Fernandes and Chris Wood. Those are the ones I'd hone in on for the captaincy. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Are you going template with the likes of Chris Wood, Erling Haaland, or somebody with very high ownership? Or will you go a bit maverick with a Bruno Fernandes or Phil Foden? In future FPL videos on podcasts, which includes the deadline stream on Saturday, I'll provide a top 10 captaincy list which has some maverick picks in there which can really help you rise up the rankings in your mini leagues and the overall standings. But the starting 11 for this free hit team includes Sells in goal and a back three of Gabriel, Milenkovic and Aït-Nouri. If you want to diversify your defensive line a little bit more, you could substitute Milenkovic for one of Kerkez or Diogo Dalot, and my preference would be Milos Kerkez. The midfield has Bowen, Mbeumo, Foden, Kluivert and Bruno Fernandes, and a front 2 of Chris Wood and Erling Haaland. And yes, it means a very strong bench of Areola, Ivanosen, Kerkez and Dalot. You could maybe cheap this bench out a little bit and use that with your team value and the extra funds to make a few upgrades here and there depending on your budget. But I'm very happy with this 15-man squad. The vast majority of people should be able to afford this. I've got 1.1 million left in the bank, and the expected points is 53.2. Erling Haaland is the top captaincy option according to all these algorithms like FPL Team, but as I mentioned earlier, I don't think it's as clear-cut as that, and it's not like with Mohamed Salah in recent weeks where he's the standout captaincy option by some distance. I think Fernandes, Foden and Chris Wood can really rival Haaland this week. That is the way I feel, but I think he's still the best option right now. I may feel differently though when I create those graphics for the top 10 captaincy options, which you'll see this weekend. The best free hit team for Blank Gameweek 29 has been covered extensively throughout this video, and there is more FPL content headed your way. As I mentioned before, the team selection is going to be published in the next couple of days, a deadline stream on Saturday, and perhaps a reaction stream on Saturday night or Sunday evening. Keep your eyes peeled for those pieces of content, and if you want to see a best wildcard squad, then like this video, get it to over 200 likes, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single upload or live stream. Also, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Let your feelings be known about the piece of content you want to see on this channel. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, FPL League, Spotify, and much more can be found in the description. I wish you all the best of luck for Blank Gameweek 29 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you on Saturday for that deadline stream.